The YNW Melly trial revealed brand new information today. From an exclusive video of YNW Melly turning himself in, and even one of his best friends snitching on him during testimony. This would result in a suspicious message from YNW Melly being shown in the courtroom all the way back from 2018. Here's everything that you need to know. With YNW Melly's trial finally returning after a week-long break, we would see the prosecution present the courtroom this video of YNW Melly turning himself in.
There's also the video number 1, 2, 3, 4. And in that video, Mr. Demons uses a term that I don't want, that I think would be inflammatory, and on 403 grounds we would object. It refers.
Play it again.
Sure. Hello, so everybody. This is real French. My name is Melly, and I'm gonna turn myself in. But I'm in a suitcase because they are arresting me, and I have to get on a private jet, and I don't want them to see me.
YNW Melly states inside of the clip that people are coming for him, so he had to hide in a suitcase to board the plane, leading the courtroom to believe that the people that did the alleged drive-by were after him and he was turning himself in for safety. We would even see the prosecution release messages between YNW Melly and his ex-girlfriend within weeks of the passings. This does not look good for YNW Melly in the slightest.
Moving on to Friday, November 9th. 2029 20 UTC 2018. Message from Melly Montana to, again, that baby. What does that one say?
You don't with me anyways. I peeped it. You can slide, but God knows I wasn't in her and real breaking. You spoiled everything was given to you. You act like a some slide. I keep Bortlen with cuz at the
with Melly stating his loyalty to YNW Bortlen and how YNW Bortlen did one of the realest things in his life, some believe that he is talking about what happened with Sack Chaser and Juvie on the night of the crime. He even said in the text messages how he would never switch on Bortlen either, making you wonder just what could have caused such a tight-knit bond between the two that they promised they would never switch up on each other. However, just earlier on in the trial, we would even see the prosecution call Trayvon Glass to the stand. This is somebody very close with YNW Melly, and he's even one of the people that were inside of the red vehicle at the recording studio on that night. If it was up to YNW Melly's team, he never would have been called to the stand to begin with, as we would see Melly's lawyer trying to convince the judge he didn't have a good reason to be there today.
On the stand is knowingly, Judge. They knew in the deposition, 1. 2, they knew when I put him on notice with my motion. So they had the opportunity after the deposition, 2, after my motion pointing out we violated the rule of sequestration, just not to call them. They, however, are going to continue to proceed knowing he has violated the rule and put him on the stand. So yes, when we look at it that way, the state may be acting inappropriately.
The prosecution called Trayvon to the stand to discuss where he first saw YNW Melly after the crime, where he practically snitches on him in the end, as it led to the report of, and I quote, YNW Melly's friend confirms that Melly changed his clothing at Fredo Bang's house on the night of the crime.
Okay. Was that the first time you saw Melly after you guys left the studio?
Yeah.
Was Melly wearing the same clothes or different clothes than when you saw him at the studio?
It was a new day. Nah, he wasn't.
Nah, he wasn't. You guys
Wasn't wearing the same clothes.
Okay. Do you recall what he was wearing?
Just had on some shorts.
Okay. And
with Trayvon testifying that YNW Melly did in fact change his clothing on that night, very similar to how YNW Bortlen did as well, it makes them look equally as guilty, and this will make the jury believe that YNW Melly had to have been in the car at the time of the crime. Why else would he need to change his clothing? However, Trayvon still had a lot of time left inside of this courtroom, as when the trial went on recess, Trayvon decided to start texting people during the break, where the judge would give him a huge warning for it and even raise his voice a little bit.
You're looking at me now. All right, thank you. I wasn't here. I left the office, left the bench, come for a recess, came back in, and counsel suggested to me that you're on the phone and you read something and you're discussing something on the phone. Is that true?
It's true.
Yes. So, did it have anything to do with this case?
Not at all.
So, was it some other business, or
So it's me texting. So,
you were texting? Were you texting about the case?
about it.
What were you texting?
Texting saying that it's wild. That's all I said.
I didn't hear you.
I said things are wild. That's all I said.
Things are wild.
It's wild.
Anything else?
That's it.
And did you have a conversation with someone?
My brother called me.
Near the end of Trayvon's testimony, YNW Melly's lawyers would begin asking Trayvon about the night, where he would actually help out YNW Melly in the end.
You don't know of any friction between Melly and Anthony Day Williams at any time.
I know.
And you don't know of any friction between Melly and Christopher Thomas at any time.
I know.
You didn't see any friction between that night of any magnitude.
I did.
You did.
I didn't.
So with Trayvon saying there was no issues ongoing between Melly, Sack Chaser, and Juvie, this in the end would be a huge win for YNW Melly in the end. However, with the jury knowing that YNW Bortlen changed his clothing mysteriously in that night, and having YNW Melly's friends also admitting Melly did the same thing, is some very questionable words from Melly's friend. As later on in the day, we would even see Trayvon begin sharing some questionable things online after his testimony.
So Trayvon Glass has been really active on Instagram since he finished his testimony today. So he posted this on Instagram, and you can pause to read it, but in a nutshell, he basically said, "I'm not a rat, and if I am, come and me." And just before he took the witness stand, he posted this image, and it's with Sack Chaser and Juvie in it. So I guess that's in commemoration. I mean, he was friends with these two guys. And then he proceeded to post this video by Charleston White with a caption that says, "Bruh bug." And in the video, Charleston White is basically talking about, if you me up, he's gonna basically snitch to the prosecutors. So I'm curious as to who Trayvon Glass thinks is gonna him up for testifying. Now remember, he did take a phone call while he was in court, and that's when the judge had asked him, basically, who were you talking to? Trayvon had explained it was his brother calling, and he was just concerned about his whereabouts. In my opinion, it sounds like a number of people probably didn't want Trayvon Glass to testify today, so I'm curious as to who it was.
As I'll remind you, on the stand today, it is being live streamed to tens of thousands of people. Somebody texting Trayvon may have said, "Hey, you're saying way too much," and maybe even telling Trayvon to keep quiet while on the stand. This would even lead into more information coming out about Sack Chaser and Juvie's passings, as it would be shared inside of the courtroom how YNW Melly reacted just hours after the crime. From this being reported by the Stranger Things jacket YNW Melly is wearing in this video just hours after the crime is the same one Juvie had on when they left the studio early on that morning. YNW Bortlen is wearing the one Sack Chaser had on too, where it looks like YNW Melly is the happiest he has ever been just hours after the incident.
You see him? Melly still turned regardless of what happened this early morning. He's still out here being very positive. Turned still. Hey! No, still turned, regardless of what happened. You already know.
This was broadcasted on Facebook Live just hours after the incident, and throughout the video, YNW Melly is dancing around looking like he's in the greatest of spirits. However, this is exactly how YNW Juvie's father described Melly's behavior when talking to him just a day after his son's passing, leading him to believe Melly was the guilty one the entire time.
From the day one, I believe that Melly was responsible for my son on October 26th when I first heard the story, because his explanation when I finally talked to him in Cortland on a FaceTime, their response and how they was reacting, they showed no remorse. They didn't act like they was grieving, like they lost a best friend or nothing. They was, in my opinion, they was in the best spirits. They wasn't reacting to, they act like they didn't have take a loss at all. That's how I took it. And then when I was talking to them, I still had in the back of my mind something's not right.
While YNW Juvie's father was speaking out online about his son, we would even see Juvie's mother appear in the courtroom for the case, confirming where her son, as well as where YNW Melly sat in the vehicle after the studio.
Can you state your name, your full legal name for the jury?
I'm Leon Phillips.
Okay. And are you related to one of the victims in this case?
Yes, I am.
How so?
I'm his mother.
And who is that?
Christopher Thomas.
Pause it at 2:19:15. Ms. Phillips, did you see who entered into the occupants who entered into that gray Jeep?
Mm-hmm.
And is that a yes?
Yes.
Do you recognize where your son entered that gray Jeep?
Yes.
Which seat, if you can identify for the jury?
He got in the back seat on the right-hand side.
Did you recognize the individual that got into the back seat on the left side, the rear driver's side?
Yes.
And who was that individual?
Jamel.
And Jamel, is that the defendant, Jamel Demons?
Yes, ma'am.
Roughly 30 minutes after YNW Juvie's mom was done on the stand and exited the courtroom, YNW Melly would be weirdly smiling in the moment inside of the courtroom. However, reality would then hit when Sergeant Williams would take the stand, as he's been the man in charge of the reconstruction of the crime scene, and he even explains how he determined it was not a drive-by.
Assignment, which is to determine if this is a drive-by. And my determination was that this is not a drive-by, and it's based upon this picture here, which is a very good picture to describe it. All of these rounds are done. One is done at a stationary position. The at a stationary position when all but one of these rounds are going in. The one round that has some movement in it, which is round site L here, the actually moving in that to create the little bit of a that you see there.
Okay, a lot of information in that answer, so let's break it down a little bit. You mentioned so I'm gonna zoom in on site F.
The sergeant was not done here either, as he would continue on and report YNW Melly is accused to be the one using the firearm in this situation. Williams, who said there was an item used 3 times in the car, including 17 times outside of the vehicle.
Number, you said 17 outside the car. How many rounds were inside of the car?
3.
And can you exclude the for Mr. Williams and Mr. Thomas as coming from outside of the car?
Yes. From the driver's side back seat.
As to the shot that Christopher Thomas, where did that come from?
Driver's side back seat.
Okay. Is it possible for there to have been 2 inside that car?
No.
Why not?
There is no time.
To which Williams was extremely confident in his findings in the reconstruction. He disagreed with Melly's lawyers time and time again when questioned if there was any other possibility of the crime that it could have been done from outside of the vehicle. His lawyers got so desperate, as YNW Melly was looking guiltier than ever inside of the courtroom, that they would go on to blame YNW Bortlen again.
And you are aware that the person that claimed it was a is Cortland Henry.
I believe so. I don't know who said that it was a drive. I was just asked to say if it was a drive.
Okay. And you're aware that when Cortland Henry made this statement that this gentleman was nowhere around, right?
I wasn't part of the initial investigation,
okay.
So I don't know if that was included in their Miramar's investigation with that.
Okay. But whoever, what you are saying is whoever claimed was lying.
Was incorrect.
As this is when we would see YNW Bortlen actually show up inside of the courtroom himself, as he received his own trial date.
Bortlen Henry,
Yes, sir, he's present.
but you in the back of the
Status
status
conference.
Come on up.
Hey, I don't know, I guess you're already trial code is at your end. We're set for October 3rd for trial.
You had a motion pending as well?
Yes, Judge. As the court, when we were here the last time, you let him go to church and stuff, you said about working, you would be subject to seeing his schedule. We filed a schedule for the next couple of months.
I saw that.
Be able to work. And I talked to his probation supervisor. She has no problem with him at all. She said that if he's gonna go to work, she'd like anybody has to do, provide an itinerary, where he's gonna be, how he's gonna get there, how it's gonna get done.
Many lawyers online believe it's very possible that YNW Bortlen will actually take a plea deal against Melly, seeing as though Melly's lawyers have constantly been throwing YNW Bortlen's name into the mix, while reminding the jury time and time again that Bortlen is the one that lied, Bortlen brought a change of clothing, and Bortlen was definitely there on that night. Here's what a professional attorney even had to say about YNW Bortlen.
Is it too late for Cortland to plea?
No, I don't think it's too late. It's never too late. I've had individuals been offered pleas but turned them down in the middle of trial. I've had people offered pleas before a verdict came back. So it just depends on the case, depends on the prosecutor, depends on the actual charges. So no, it's never too late for that. He could take a plea in the middle of his case. I don't think that would happen. If he was going to take a plea, if there was going to be a deal, it would be in the middle of Melly's case.
If YNW Bortlen were to take a plea deal, then it would absolutely be over for YNW Melly. But this would also lead to the lawsuit that has been filed against Melly being pretty much a guarantee. This lawsuit seeks tens of millions of dollars in damages. The lawsuit argues that YNW Melly, his mother, and his manager all benefited from the passing of YNW Juvie, as they were using the hashtag Free Melly to promote music within the YNW group. With continued financial gain and notoriety and prospects of more, tensions began to develop between members of the YNW group, where they highlighted the video of YNW Melly's mother talking about Sack Chaser.
Show me text messages from Sack Chaser, all her friends, and all these people, like he's about this life. But I'm saying, like, who you ever out at, what you ever did? You couldn't even take charge. If you don't sit your down and don't ever come for me, because my credentials is real. It ain't even a joke. So don't ever try to come for me, because I don't even play them type of games. Like, what you got that I ain't got? Oh, you your look. I got big. At the end of the day, Melly is my child.
Afterwards, it details how they believe the crime went down, where it reports, YNW Melly was seated in the left rear seat of the vehicle, where he affected Christopher Thomas, aka YNW Juvie. Following the incident, during the critical period where it was still possible to save Juvie and Sack Chaser, defendants Melly and Bortlen instead changed their clothing and staged the drive-by. In doing so, they destroyed evidence of their crime and manufactured evidence to support the staged drive-by by using a firearm multiple times into and around the Jeep. It even went as far as to claim YNW Melly's mother, Jamie King, and Melly's music manager were involved in the cover-up of the crime of hiding evidence. Now, it's very common knowledge that no item that was used in the crime was found by the feds.
Why not?
So the first thing is I didn't have a firearm, so I can't know which firearm I'm going to use in order to replicate any of my tests. So I can't make tests for this determination because I don't know what was used.
Okay. Do you have a
which now makes the interview that 100K Track, aka YNW Melly's music manager, had with DJ Academics around 2 years ago even more interesting. As he states, Melly has great defenses on his side, and now it makes you wonder, does Melly have such great defenses due to them destroying the evidence?
He built a real great solid team away from just being innocent, because he wouldn't do such a crime. He prepared himself and got a proper, defense. Their job is to handle themselves in trial, not on social media. You guys are taking it that way. If they say they got DNA in a car, I'm just gonna tell you, Melly DNA was found in the car. You're gonna think, yeah, his DNA was found in the car the day of the, oh, he jumped in a car and his DNA was in the car, he did it. Okay, but you're not gonna put the fact that this was his car for 6-7 months on those documents and dockets and just automatically be like, yo, he's fried. You don't even know what the defense is. You don't even know what the rebuttal is. You don't even know why that situation occurred. You hear ballistics flying, you don't know what the defense is. You hear this, you hear that. You get what I'm saying?
I'm gonna be honest.